Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner with The Wedding Biz. In the introduction to last week's episode with Jennifer Stein, editor-in-chief, publisher, and co-owner of Destination I Do and Destination Media, I mentioned that hers was the 500th episode of the Wedding Biz podcast. 500. And I've thoroughly enjoyed bringing you these episodes on a weekly basis, and for a couple of years, it was actually 2 episodes a week. So reaching that number of 500 is really a milestone that I'm very proud of. And if you haven't yet listened to all 500, just know that you can probably find almost anyone you're interested in by going to theweddingbiz.com and typing their name into the search field at the top of the page to find the episode number and date so that you can then go back to your cell phone's podcast app and find it, or you can listen straight from the website. Anyway, today's guest is Anna Roussos. She is one of the leading wedding photographers in Italy, Greece, France, and the rest of Europe. Clients who are fashion-oriented with an artistic tendency form an instant connection with Anna as she deeply appreciates artful, forward-thinking, and lets her photography unravel about it. She has been featured in the pages of Vogue, Elle, Martha Stewart Weddings, Grace Ormond, Brides, and more. Anna was named Best Wedding Photographer in Europe by The Wed, Best Editorial Wedding Photographer in Greece by the Wed Lux magazine, and named one of the top wedding photographers in Europe by the Wed Vibes. So enjoy this conversation with Anna Roussos. Hey, Anna, it's so fun to have you on this show, especially that we have an ocean between us. So I appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy, for having me here. I'm very excited about this podcast.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Well, you know, the way I want to start is that somewhere, I'm not sure, I don't remember where I saw it, maybe your website, I'm not sure, but I found a quote of yours that really grabbed my attention. And here it is. So, as a child, I remember seeing the photograph of a couple whirling across the dance floor of Harlem's Savoy Ballroom in New York. Perfectly steady ankles, flawlessly glowing eyes, silk satin cascading, 2 bodies orbiting, balancing each other. Without its center of gravity, such lightness would not be possible.
Yes.
I love that quote. You remember, how old were you? When did you see that photograph?
That was when I was probably like 12 years old. I want to start by saying I'm a very, very romantic person. And I used to be that way from a very young age. So I was writing poetry when I was young. I was attracted to romantic movies, books. So we had this book, like a photo album in the house. And I remember seeing that photograph along with some others. And it felt captivating to me. Back then, I didn't know yet what I wanted to do in the future as my career, but I was attracted to those moments, flawless, romantic, filled with love, emotion from very young age.
Wow. So when was it that you realized that you want to do photography, for your life, for your career?
I've been a wedding photographer professionally for a bit more than 15 years. So the starting point was quite long ago. First, I studied TV directing in Moscow at the university, and I worked as a TV director for a couple of years. And then I moved to Greece. So I didn't speak Greek, and I couldn't find easily a job in TV directing. Photography was my hobby all this time. So back then, it was the only way to express myself creatively. And I started pursuing a photography career when I moved to Greece. And it started from fashion photography. I cooperated back then with various model agencies. And I did so many test shoots for models. I lost count, but it helped me to build portfolio and to master my skills. And what happened afterwards is that it was a crisis. A lot of publishing houses closed. So I just started working with magazines, and then everything collapsed. And at that very moment, I received a request from a friend of a friend who is getting married in Santorini. And I told them, guys, I never photographed a wedding. And they say, but, you photograph all these editorial shoots. How difficult will it be for you to cover a wedding? And we love your vision. We love your eye. And to be honest, back then, I could not see myself as a wedding photographer. I was not attracted to wedding photography at all. It seemed like it's not a genre where one can get really creative. But I've never been in Santorini, so I said, let's do it. So this was my very first wedding, and it turned out amazing. And it was a big surprise to me how much I enjoyed the whole process, how much I enjoyed being there and witnessing the real emotions, working with real people. It was a game changer to me, this wedding.
Wow. So, and you're saying that, it was the emotion of it all that grabbed you. And so I guess that's when you realized that, yes, you can be creative from an emotional perspective to capture that, right? I'm assuming that's what it was.
Absolutely. After that wedding, I sat down and had this honest talk with myself. I accepted that the fact that I actually enjoyed it a lot. I liked very much the result as well. I love the idea of capturing love in photographs, capturing real emotion in photographs, like that. I had this power in my hands to do that and to deliver those cherished memories to my couples. It felt very special. And I became very quickly very intrigued about the wedding industry. So very quickly, I changed my website from a fashion-oriented to a wedding-oriented. I worked on my search engine optimization. I was aiming for, back then, for US clients traveling to Greece to get married. And very quickly, I started receiving a lot of requests. So after maybe 2 years after this very first wedding, I became a full-time wedding photographer.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
And you think that it was mostly from your website and search engine optimization that people found you? That was the main way that they found you?
I'm a very marketing-oriented person, so I did a lot of things simultaneously. One of the reasons I had a big success with US clients is that I was very much inspired by US wedding photographers. Back then, the way wedding photography looked in Greece, what was local photographers offering, wasn't something that was attracting me really very much. So I found a lot of inspiration in US. Back then, it was, and still, a very popular approach is fine art. So I was a fine art photographer for quite a long time. It was very popular in States. So I was the first photographer who offered this kind of imagery in Greece. So that was one of the reasons. Of course, search engine optimization helped enormously. And back then, we're talking about 15 years ago, it was not something many were doing. And if you were doing it effectively, it was very easy to stand out because the competition was not the same it is today. So that definitely helped. I discovered the world of blogs, wedding blogs. So my mission was to get every wedding I photographed published. So I was on the mission, of getting published, and that worked and helped definitely very, very much. So it was kind of a bunch of things that I've done when it comes to marketing all combined. Gave that result very quickly, I have to say.
Well, can you tell me about your photography style and your overall approach to how you capture weddings?
Absolutely. Well, my style has changed quite a lot over this 15 years. Today, I would describe my style as an elegant reportage with a dash of fashion. But it took me a long time to polish it and to make it look what it is today. And I have to say, I'm constantly working on it. I have a goal before every season to add or remove, improve certain things in my style in certain ways. When it comes to the approach, there are three most important things for me when I photograph a wedding. Number one is to tell the story. Storytelling is a very important element of wedding photography, and I want my clients to relive the whole day every time they revisit their wedding gallery. And when they see it for the first time, I want them to have this element of surprise and notice some things that they haven't noticed on the wedding day because they simply did not happen in front of them.
Like what?
a reaction of someone, or someone being foolish or silly, or someone crying. There's so many moments that happen like behind the back of the bride and groom. So, and usually these kind of moments, they treasure, so, like photographs, they treasure so much. But this kind of approach, it requires a certain mindset. You have to be curious. You have to be on the watch and anticipating those things happening around. And this is something I always brief my team and remind to my team and to myself before I photograph a wedding. Then the second most important thing for me is to wrap everything in a very beautiful aesthetic. I'm a very detail-oriented person, and I really want to deliver a cohesive gallery where no matter what I photograph, a flat lay, a portrait of the couple or a guest or a decor, I want everything to have the same creative approach and work really well together in the final gallery. And the number three most important thing in my approach, and I believe this is like an X factor for clients' satisfaction, I want to make sure my couples love how they look in the photos. It can be an amazing photograph, like technically the light, the composition, but if the couple doesn't like the way they look in the picture, this photo will never see the world of Instagram, or forget about it being framed.
Right, right. Well, how do you manage their expectations? I mean, like how do you, what kind of conversations or not that you have ahead of time with them to understand, their vision, their preferences? How do you get through that?
Yes. Well, I want to know as much as possible about the couple, about my clients before the wedding day. I want to know what they like, what they don't like, what they will wear, every tiny detail. I want them to feel, and I want to feel myself, that we know each other when we meet on the wedding day, and we're not strangers. So I ask my couples to allow me in a way on the wedding planning. And I truly believe that 70% of success of wedding photography lies in a very thoughtful preparation. So one of the things that are really important for me and a part of my workflow is creating a very detailed timeline together, wedding photography timeline. So,
right, with the planner.
So yes, there is a lot of communication with the planner involved here. Usually I love receiving a draft of the timeline before everything set in stone, so we can make sure that there is enough time to capture everything the couple wants to be captured, that there is enough time to get creative and to let some moments to unfold naturally without being in a rush. And then based on that, I create a very detailed photography timeline, which is kind of an offspring of the wedding timeline, but can become a very intricate document on its own, where we write down everything about what's going to happen from the photography perspective on the wedding day. So yeah, there is a lot of communication. As many things as I can learn about the couple, the better the result will be. I also love preparing mood boards with the clients. Actually, I love giving them an exercise to prepare a mood board on their own first, because, sometimes, you can see on my site various photographs. Some of them are candid, some are more like fashion, like editorial, like looking. Some are very romantic. So I'm not the kind of photographer who would ever impose and photograph a couple in a way that doesn't represent who they are. So I want to know who they are and what attracts them. So I give them this exercise. I ask them to put a mini mood board, like 10 photos of the images that they can relate to, that make them click. Because sometimes it's hard to verbalize, like they say, I like romantic. And then they do this exercise and they pin like a very editorial images, and they actually discover during that exercise for themselves that they like something else. So this kind of mood board, it's not a set of photos that we'll try to mimic, not at all. It's more for me to understand where their liking is, like what kind of photography, what kind of moment and mood attracts them.
Yeah. I want to back up also for a moment, Anna, because you made a point that I want to really emphasize for any planners who are listening, which is to ask them to send us a draft timeline versus the final. And I'm in the entertainment business, so I've got bands, and we're doing all kinds of range of weddings, Lux, Ultra, all the whole thing. And I really love when a planner sends me, like you said, a draft so that and asks me, do I have any input? And of course I look at it, I'm sure you do too, that they have the final say, the planner does, but to give us an opportunity to, kind of take advantage of whatever skill set we have and experience that might help improve the party in a variety of ways. And so I think that's really, really important. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Yes. And I have to say it can be a game changer because sometimes also a wedding planner is not aware of some things that couple wants to capture. For instance, they want to spend more time photographing the preparation and pay more attention photography-wise to the bride and the bridesmaids, etc. So if everything is set in stone already by the wedding planner without it being run by a photographer, sometimes it might not work out at the end. So it's really helpful to be able to change and adjust a few things if needed. Draft is very important for me.
I want to make sure that you're aware of two other shows that are on the Wedding Biz Network. First are 2 seasons of Stop and Smell the Roses, hosted by well-known event designer Preston Bailey. Preston speaks with such an honest and sincere voice. This is the only platform in which you can hear this legend of the industry share secrets to his success. Also, check out the 140 episodes of The Business of Being Creative, hosted by Sean Lowe. Sean's consulting firm, The Business of Being Creative, is full of topics and advice for any creative business with a focus on the event and interior design industry. You can find both shows at theweddingbiznetwork.com or on your cell phone's podcast app for both Stop and Smell the Roses and The Business of Being Creative. I also want to talk about balancing the art with the business because it's not easy for anyone working in the weddings and event industry to balance artistic vision and creativity with the commercial demands of running a successful business. What can you say about that?
Andy, that is a very interesting question. I love it. Wedding photography is not exactly a genre where a photographer has 100% of creative freedom and he can do whatever idea comes to his mind, or he cannot change his editing suddenly or even his creative approach. In order to have a successful business, you must be consistent in what you do in order to build trust. So for me, for achieving success as a wedding photography business, I truly believe you need to niche your business and your artistry as well. And niching your artistry might sound limiting in a way, but it's not really the case. Important thing to understand is that niching is not about going wide, but it's about going a mile deep instead. Niching allows you to define very clearly your style, your product, and then perfect it, polish it to the point that it starts shining so bright that your dream clients will be waiting in line to book your services.
How do you define your niche? When you did that work for yourself, how would you describe it?
So my niche had changed over the time as well. When you're defining your niche, what can determine your niche can be your location, for example, or it can be the style of the events or the type of clients you're working with. At this point, my niche is luxury events in Europe, more specifically in Italy and France. So all my marketing efforts that I'm in strategy, everything is based on that, purpose, on that goal at the point. So it's very important to name the things for yourself in order to take the right steps afterwards. Yes.
I love that. Also, in building a strong wedding photography portfolio, how do you go about selecting the right images to really showcase who you are as a photographer? How do you approach that?
Well, that's building portfolio and showcasing the right images is is also, I would say, it's a part of marketing. And it's extremely important part of building a strong brand image. Going a bit backwards on that topic, I would say you can be an amazing photographer, but without a strong brand that supports you and right marketing strategy, you will not reach the clientele that you want. So we spoke earlier about niching your business, but before working on a brand, you need to also understand who's your ideal client, what he likes, what he doesn't like to portray a brand persona, to describe this brand persona for yourself in every intricate detail possible. So after that, you can really start working on your brand. You can define your brand. What I like doing here is describing your brand with 3 words, let's say. For me, at this point, it's modern, artistic, elegant. And then you have to be consistent and stick to it. So when you choose the images for your portfolio or for your Instagram, these images should breathe these 3 words. You have to showcase what you want to attract. And this is crucial. And I know that many photographers are struggling with it. It's not easy to pick. Sometimes it's not easy just to pick for yourself, an image that will go on your portfolio because you love this one for that reason and another one for another reason. Sometimes you need the help of someone else also here.
Boy, I love what you said a moment ago about that you have to showcase what you want to attract. I think some of us, and speaking for myself in my early days, I don't know that I really had defined my ideal client. And, I just was putting out what I thought was the great music, great bands. I don't know that I really thought in terms of that until later in my career, and then started to craft, promotional material, marketing material that, as you say, attracts the kind of client that you want. I think that's a really important point.
Yes, and then if your images and your portfolio trying to speak to everyone, and also if your marketing messages are trying to speak to every single client out there, at the end you will be speaking to no one.
Right.
And that's the very truth behind it.
Yeah.
You cannot please everyone.
No, right. And that's another thing, is being able to recognize and turn away clients who really don't fit that formula in a sense. Also staying with the topic of marketing, how has technology and social media impacted your business?
Well, in today's world of instant sharing and real-time updates, being very quick when it comes to delivery times is very crucial. Social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, they have made it so much easier for couples to share their wedding moments in real time. So this definitely had led to a demand for a very quick turnaround times from photographers. Many couples are expecting highlights shortly after the event. For example, I have a celebrity wedding this summer, and my client is very concerned that the photos that her guests will take during the event will go viral instead of the professional photos. So we're working on a separate timeline for editing pictures while the event is happening in order to have a set of images ready by the end of the day. This is quite difficult. It adds a layer of pressure, to be honest, but there's nothing we can do about it. We just have to deal with this and go along, That's what clients are asking for today. The other thing that I would think of is drone photography. This is something that becomes very popular lately, and many couples increasingly interested in incorporating drone photography to showcase their wedding venues, the wedding locations. So it's another skill now a wedding photographer should have, is to be a drone operator. I have someone on my team, usually it's my second photographer, who is flying the drone for me, but it's a part of a game right now that, and I love personally aerial shots. It's something that we're not used to do, we weren't used to do some years ago. Now it became a commodity. It's here and there.
Yeah, I see that on Instagram. I mean, just the past couple of years, I'm starting to see more and more of those kind of shots and video.
Yes, and these images, they add so much value to the final gallery. They're beautiful. Then there is another job on the market as a content creator for weddings. Another interesting thing. It's not that really, well, it does affect me in a way, but I've had several brides this season asking me if I can advise them any content creator. So basically, it's a person who films the whole event on the iPhone from the beginning till the end, and then gives the raw footage to the clients, and then also can create some reels, TikToks with that footage. This is something very new. But I think we're going to be seeing more and more of this at the weddings.
That's really interesting. That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to bring up that I did not ask about? Any other topics that you feel would be really, I mean, obviously we could talk for hours, but is there anything in particular that you'd like to bring up that I've missed?
I loved our conversation about branding, and I strongly believe that having a brand that supports your photography is crucial for a successful wedding photography business. Maybe what I would like to add here is when someone is working on creating a luxury brand, because this is like another layer of extra work and things that you have to keep in mind. And for me, when I started not as a luxury wedding photography, as a regular, I would say, wedding photographer, I didn't have back then a luxury clientele. And there were some changes that I had to do in order to rebrand and aim and target a luxury market. So what is really luxury brand? I really like to use the acronym REPA to describe it, where R stands for rare. So it means that your service or your product that you offer is rare. It's not something you can find like on every corner of the street. E stands for exclusive. And again, it has to be something that is not available for the vast majority. Hence, all the fashion brands, they have quite a high price tag. P stands for prestigious. And what this means is that your client should be proud to say, I hired Anna Roussos as my wedding photographer, or I hired an X wedding planner as my wedding planner. So here you have to work on your, not just on your brand, but on your persona as well, and how you presented within this brand. And A stands for authentic. And I believe that luxury brands, they must be authentic. They have to be very transparent in their communication. Everything has to be very consistent. Again, going back to portfolio and showcasing specific images that send a specific message and targeting the specific clientele that you want. So in luxury brands, it's not just about providing an amazing quality of service or like photographs. It's about an outstanding quality of experience that your client have while working with you. It's about how you make them feel, starting from very first communication to the very last one.
I love that. I really love what you're talking about. And that especially the very last part in terms of making them feel, really good and engaged from the beginning. I mean, it's interesting, Anna, like just before we started to record this, I was sending out an introductory email to a couple that I'm going to be speaking to about the music for their wedding. And I wanted to make sure that I expressed my excitement at working with them and being able to help them, have this wonderful celebration. I wanted that to come out immediately in the opening paragraph of my email to them, so that right from the start, hopefully, I'm connecting, even though it's just through an email, right from the beginning, first sentence or second sentence. I think that's a really good point too.
It's a very important emotional connection and being genuine and available for your clients emotionally. Also, it's quite demanding, and also that's the reason I cannot take many events per season, I'm taking very limited number of weddings, so I can provide this kind of experience and tailor-made approach to all of my couples.
How many weddings are you taking on average?
It's about like 18 to 20 events.
It still sounds like a lot to me because you're doing a lot of these destination weddings. So
Right. Well, I still work, I would say like 30% of my work is in Greece, where I'm based, and 70 Europe, rest of Europe, and sometimes we travel to US or Brazil, you name it. But yeah, usually it's a multi-days events. They're quite demanding. So I agree, 18 is quite a high number. The goal is to reduce it eventually. But again, this requires a certain business plan to be able to make it work with less.
Right. Absolutely. Well, last question, just for the photographers who are listening to this. What equipment are you currently using?
I started working with Canon cameras since the very beginning, and I have been very committed to Canon for years. At this point, I use Canon R5. I love this camera. I have many lenses, more than 10, I would say, but the lens number one that I use 90% is 28 70 millimeter lens, which allows me to not to miss, I would say, any moment there, because you can zoom in and zoom out without changing the lens. I used to work with prime lenses for a decade. That's why I still have that many in my bag. But since that lens came out, it was a game changer for me, because sometimes you just need to be really, really quick and react, within seconds on the wedding day, especially when we're talking about candid moments. And you're not always able to do that with prime lenses.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Yeah. Well, Anna, this has been wonderful getting to know you and talking to you about the wonderful topic of photography. And I just really appreciate you taking the time. This has been really fun and very informative. So thank you. I really.
Andy, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed a lot our talk.
Yeah, great. Thank you for listening to my conversation with Anna Roussos. Be sure to check out her website, which is annaroussos.com. That is ANNAROUSSOS.com. You can find her on Instagram at Anna Roussos. And be sure to check out the show notes with the event pics that she provided on our website at theweddingbiz.com. And be sure to follow The Wedding Biz on Instagram at The Wedding Biz. And you can also follow the podcast by clicking the follow button at the top so that you always know when a new episode drops. And next week's guest is going to be Akeshi Kinshaya. A really dynamic conversation, and we'll catch you next week.